Everyone in the funeral home, every living person got a text. When alone with a body, do not make a sound, no matter what happens. Every corpse has a chance to come back to life. To revive one of the dead, you must kill 3 of the living. The dead can speak and have a normal body temperature, but they cast no reflection in a mirror, and their fingers cannot bend. Do not go into the last stall in the restroom. If someone calls your name in the restroom, do not answer. If you want to leave this funeral home alive, follow the rules above. Happy death anniversary, everyone. My best friend killed herself because of school bullying. Nina's memorial photo looks pretty slutty. Guess she's hoping to snag a rich guy in the afterlife, since she failed while she was alive. The classmates who came to her service were still smirking and joking, treating the funeral home like an amusement park. Suddenly, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Everyone had gotten text. No one here is wearing red. Do not speak to anyone in red, and do not look directly into red eyes. Do not turn around on the 14th step, especially if someone calls your name from behind you. The incinerator is a good place, but please limit each use to under 2 minutes. The break room is safe, but only 6 people can enter at a time. If the number is exceeded, the safety is void. The security cameras in the funeral home cannot be trusted. Cannot be trusted. Cannot be trusted. Is this a joke? So lame. Who's trying to spook us? Shit, who wanted to come here anyway? I'm leaving right now. The students started cursing, but then the air went still. Because on our phone maps, there was no record of this funeral home's existence. I had a sinking feeling. If it wasn't on the map, how did they even get here? You all bullied Nina so relentlessly. Why do you have to be here? It wasn't just bullying. During an exam, someone had flicked a cheat sheet on her desk. The teacher, without getting any of the facts straight, insisted she had cheated. In the end, Nina's spot in the study abroad program was revoked. The students who framed her and reported her were all here today. They all glanced at each other, and their subtle expressions told me everything. They were hiding a secret no one else knew. The atmosphere grew heavy as we realized that in the enormous funeral home, there wasn't a single staff member in sight. The dead silence of the place made my heart start to pound with a strange anxiety. Worse, we had no cell service. The funeral home was out in the suburbs. The weather had been clear when we arrived, but now a thick, white fog had rolled in. A few of the braver, more impatient guys started cussing and stormed into the fog, determined to walk out and call a cab. The fog was so dense you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It swallowed them in an instant. Suddenly, I saw a black shadow flash in the mist. What was that? A terrible premonition bloomed in my gut. The next second, a blood-curdling scream tore through the air. My heart hammered against my ribs. My mind went blank. The screams continued in the distance, a rising and falling chorus mixed with the wet, tearing sound of flesh being eaten. It froze everyone in place. Out of the fog, several pairs of crimson, unearthly eyes emerged. They stared at us, unblinking. I forgot how to breathe. The creatures' faces were covered in liver spots. They had human limbs, but their eyes were a deep, dark red, and fresh blood dripped from their fangs. To revive one of the dead, you must kill 3 of the living. There were 9 guys who had just walked out. The number of monsters that revived was exactly 3. Now, it wasn't just me. Everyone understood. The rules were real. The dead are walking. They crawled out of the hearses. My classmates scattered, a primal instinct to flee, but no matter how fast they ran, they couldn't outrun the monsters. In moments, several girls were brutally pounced on and devoured. A classmate fell on my feet, blood gushing from the wounds and pooling on the floor. I met the girl's wide, dead eyes, and my legs gave out. I collapsed to the ground in terror. But in that moment, I remember a rule. Do not speak to anyone in red, and do not look directly into red eyes. And another one, tacked on, if you do not blink. Don't blink. Don't blink. Don't blink. They judge if you're one of them by whether you blink. I screamed. But in a moment of life or death panic, a person can't control something so small. A corpse started sniffing at my neck. A chill shot up from my feet to the top of my head. I was staring into the dead thing's eyes, our faces practically touching. I could see worms squirming in its pupils. The next second, a corpse worm fell onto my eyelid. I'm terrified of bugs, but I didn't dare wipe it away. The worm, smelling fresh blood, began to wriggle violently. The itching, crawling pain was worse than death. Every hair on my body stood on end. I could only bite down hard on my lip, using the pain to remind myself. Don't blink. Absolutely not. Finally, the survivors scrambled back into the funeral home, slamming the heavy doors shut. Bang, bang, bang. A frantic pounding started on the other side of the door. We threw our bodies against it, using all our weight to hold it closed. After a few more rounds of impacts, the outside slowly fell silent. My heart still racing, I slid to the floor, gasping for breath. It was only then I realized my clothes were soaked through with sweat. Everyone get inside. Let's figure this out. No one goes to the restroom, the class president, Simon, said, being the first to regain his composure. He was a top student, a clear thinker, and without a doubt, the one everyone looked to for leadership. Now, there were only about a dozen of us left. It was only then that I learned why my classmates had come. They had all received a mysterious text. Someone sent a threatening text. If we didn't follow the GPS directions, they were going to expose. Who knew we'd end up at a funeral home? I felt a wave of nausea. Expose what? What they had done to Nina. Panic filled the room. Do not speak to anyone in red, and do not look into their eyes. It has to be her. The news said she was wearing red when she died. I would never forget the sight of Nina's body for the rest of my life. She had slit her wrists. She'd bled out, wearing a red dress as vibrant as a flower. Those who die a violent death won't rest until their final wish is fulfilled. Was Nina's wish revenge? I guess aloud, I think, we have to find out the real reason she died. At this, several students broke down sobbing. No way. I just carved a nickname on her desk. That counts? It was suicide. She was just too fragile. How is that anyone's fault? A fierce anger surged through me. How long are you going to keep pulling that victim-blaming crap? Nina was a student monitor. She had asked them not to smoke in the classroom, and for that simple request, they cornered her after class, beat her, and humiliated her in every way possible. She's already dead, and she's still so petty and vicious. Can't even take a joke between classmates anymore. Then, someone exploded in anger. Bullshit. I bet she's not even dead. That girl was always the best at playing the innocent victim. Jessica, Will, you two are with me. We're going to the chapel. I bet her mom sent those texts. The one speaking was Tiffany, the daughter of some big shot, spoiled and arrogant. She was the one who had pulled off Nina's swimsuit during swim class, letting everyone stare and laugh. She stormed toward the chapel with her cronies in tow. Nina's mom had been here just a little while ago, setting up for the service. Her daughter just died. She's been through enough. What more do you want from her? What proof do you have that she did any of this? I was afraid she'd do something reckless, so I followed right behind her. But when we pushed open the door, Tiffany froze solid. It wasn't just her. I couldn't breathe either. The chapel's incense, candles, and paper effigies were all there, but the room was completely empty. No living person. And on the table, there were 2 memorial photos. That's right, 2. Nina and her mother. In the photo, Nina's mom was wearing a bright red dress, her smile as radiant as a flower. Do not speak to anyone in red. That's what the rule said. I felt a wave of inexplicable panic. But she was just here, setting everything up. Words were meaningless, so we went to check the security footage. I wasn't lying. Nina's mom wasn't just here earlier. She was still here now. The security monitor showed that right at this very moment, in the chapel, she was still kneeling before her daughter's picture, murmuring nonstop and burning paper money. Is she a person or a ghost? Some of the students couldn't take the torment anymore and started crying, holding their heads. Tiffany's legs were turning to jelly, but she gritted her teeth, trying to stay strong. The rules said the cameras can't be trusted. It's all fake. I bet she never died, just put up a picture to trick people. But someone found the obituary. It was written in black and white. Nina's mom had hanged herself at home 3 days ago. Before she died, she put on the same red dress her daughter had worn. Nina's mom was a single mother with little education. She drove a taxi during the day and worked as a house cleaner at night. raising her daughter through incredible hardship. Nina grew up to be beautiful and brilliant, her only flaw being her poor background. She was truly flawless. The silence was terrifying. Fear crept into every heart. Simon looked around and said there was another possibility. This game of rules actually started long before we even got here. I suddenly remembered. When her mom was trying to burn the paper offerings, the fire wouldn't light. I thought she was just overcome with grief, so I offered to help. Her finger joints were clumsy, as if they were frozen stiff. She couldn't even hold a matchstick properly. The dead can speak and have a normal body temperature, but their fingers cannot bend. So, she had already killed 3 people. Tiffany, furious, threw both memorial photos to the ground. That wasn't enough, so she stomped on them until they were in pieces. Suddenly, all the lights in the chapel went out. I shivered uncontrollably. The darkness felt like it could swallow us whole at any moment. From somewhere, a piercing, cold voice announced, "Respect the dead, and you respect yourself. Congratulations, you have broken a rule. Please deliver the offender to the incinerator within 3 minutes. Otherwise, everyone present will die." The punishment countdown had officially begun. I just smashed some pictures. How is that breaking a rule? Tiffany was panicking, especially when she saw her classmates subconsciously closing in on her. She could only bluster and shout, "Jessica, Will, are you turning on me?" Seeing her like a cornered animal reminded me of Nina. She had complained to our homeroom teacher countless times, but the response was always the same. "You're all classmates. A little roughhousing is normal. Don't be so sensitive." Tiffany's mother is the head of the PDA. If you get on their bad side, you'll be the one who suffers. Tiffany's 2 most loyal cronies didn't listen to her this time. 1 minute had already passed. Time seemed to freeze. On the faces of my classmates, I saw struggle, pain, despair, but more than anything else, the will to survive. The most primitive animal instinct of humanity. Finally, someone broke the stalemate. "If we don't put you in the incinerator, we'll all die." A chorus of agreement immediately followed. "Yeah, you're the one who broke the rules. Who do you think you are, expecting all of us to die with you? You were the one who led the charge bullying Nina. You uploaded her nude video. We couldn't stand it. If it wasn't for you, she never would have killed herself. Words were the key that opened Pandora's box. Like you didn't have a part in it? You're just blaming me?" Tiffany's defense was a desperate screech. She stumbled backward as the group grabbed her and, without another word, started dragging her out. The chapel and the incinerator room were at opposite ends of a long hallway. One at the beginning, one at the end. Just like life and death, separated by a razor-thin line. In the hallway, a dozen or so corpses were shambling about. They were all the classmates who had just died outside. I figured that as soon as the countdown ended, they would attack us immediately. "Help me. I'll never do it again. Jessica, Will, I'll have my mom give your families a raise, I promise. Just let me go. My parents won't let you get away with this." Tiffany's screams were like hooks, making my scalp crawl. She suddenly grabbed my hand. "Nina, I know you're a good person. Please, save me." I lowered my eyes. She had lost all her usual rich girl swagger. Snot and tears streamed down her face as she begged me, her voice utterly pathetic. It was like I was her last piece of driftwood. "Tiffany," I whispered in her ear, "you always used to say that begging is for the weak, that the more you beg, the more it excites the abuser's desire for violence, right?" Her expression froze, her chest heaving. I'm only now realizing just how right you were. With that, I stuffed a wad of paper in her mouth, silencing her. Over there, a student had already opened the incinerator. Working together, they forced her down and slammed the hatch shut. Less than 30 seconds remained. An eerie sound of footsteps rushed towards us from all directions. The door to the incinerator room was being hit with violent thuds. "Hurry, hurry, push the button. Someone do it." "I can't. I don't want to." "The class president." "Let Simon do it." "You're the president. You should be responsible." Tiffany's eyes were bloodshot. She was already a blubbering mess, madly pounding on the hatch. "Simon, save me. Please, I know you wouldn't do this." Everyone knew one of the reasons Tiffany bullied Nina was because of Simon. Tiffany had a crush on him, But Simon, the proud and aloof class president, had asked Nina to dance at the school formal. The more Tiffany liked Simon, the more she hated Nina. Countdown, 15 seconds remaining. Sweat dripped from Simon's forehead, but I noticed his expression didn't seem conflicted. He pressed down hard on the red button. In an instant, a massive plume of fire erupted inside the furnace. The sudden flare of light scared me so badly I fell to the floor. Tiffany's body contorted grotesquely inside the furnace. Her screams echoed through the room before she was quickly reduced to ash. Countdown 0. But the corpses outside had already broken through the door and were lunging toward us. Were we still too late? My heart was pounding out of my chest. I could only grip my makeshift weapon tighter. Just as despair set in, the cold, mechanical voice returned. Punishment complete. Countdown lifted. That voice was like a gift from heaven. The corpses received a unified command and departed. Only then could everyone breathe a sigh of relief. But no one had the courage to look at the incinerator again. We all tacitly avoided any mention of Tiffany, as if she had never existed. Before heading to the restroom, I reminded a few of the other girls of the rules. Do not go into the last stall. If someone calls your name in the restroom, do not answer. But if someone knocks 3 times, no matter where you are, you must invite them in. Basic courtesy should still apply, even in the restroom. The lights in the restroom were flickering on and off. To build up our courage, we forced ourselves to chat. Hey, when you're done, don't leave without us. We all go in and out together. I'm taking a dump, so if you don't mind the smell, you can wait. Ah, Nina, do you have any tissues? Can I borrow some? I was just about finished when the girl in the next stall asked me in a low voice. I answer on reflex, yeah, I do. Then I passed the tissues through the crack under the stall door. But the girl to my left jumped in surprise. What are you doing? I didn't ask for any tissues. Every hair on my body stood on end. Fear swept through me, and I couldn't say another word. Who had asked for it? Who had I just answered? I was in the second to last stall. The girl on my left was Grace, the class scholar. The stall to my right, the last one, was supposed to be empty. The voice, stiff and mechanical, urged me on, each word drawn out in an eerie, pleading tone. Nina, hurry, give me the tissues. I'm bleeding so much. My hair stood on end. That voice, it was Melody, the girl who had died right in front of me. If someone calls your name in the restroom, do not answer. But I had already answered her. Outside the stalls, the girl washing her hands was the first to scream. I huddled in the corner, not daring to breathe. After finishing one, Melody started knocking on the stalls one by one. Is my head in there with you? The other girls, of course, didn't dare open their doors, but the knocking grew more and more frantic. The flimsy wooden doors looked like they would collapse at any moment. But after the third knock, the person hiding inside would let out a scream and then fall silent. No more pleading, no more crying, just the silence of death. But if someone knocks 3 times, no matter where you are, you must invite them in. Basic courtesy should still apply. Not opening the door would get you killed by the rules. Don't let them in, you die. Let them in, and maybe, just maybe, there's a sliver of a chance to live. Cold sweat dripped from my forehead down my neck. I clenched my jaw. After the first knock sounded on my door, I immediately took out the tissues and stuffed them into the corpse's hand. Then I threw my backpack out of the stall as hard as I could and yelled, Melody, your head is over there. The diversion worked. The sound drew her attention. She scrambled towards it, hands and feet scuttling across the floor. I seized the opportunity, burst out of the stall, and sprinted for the exit. After I was safe, I buried my face in my hands, gasping for air. 4 of us went to the restroom. I was the only one who came back alive. By now, there were probably more dead people than living ones. And all the running had left everyone starving. We couldn't go on like this. After a short rest, Simon proposed we split up. There are 18 of us left. We'll split into 3 groups, mixed gender. Group 1 will find the break room. The rules say the break room is safe. This funeral home is huge. There's a cafeteria and employee dorms. We have to find the break room mentioned in the rules. Group 2 will find food. Group 3 will find useful supplies. Finding the break room was obviously the best assignment. A few guys protested. Who made you the boss? Why should we listen to you? Simon sneered. Because I was the one who pushed the button just now. But in the end, he assigned a few guys who had argued to the break room group. I watched them go, looking so sure of themselves, and a shiver ran down my spine for no reason. Simon, you did that on purpose, didn't you? I asked him as we went to look for food. The rule for the break room is that only 6 people can get in. You sent a group of 8. For survival, for one of those 6 safe spots. I didn't dare to imagine what would happen. Simon smiled slightly. His eyes were a light hazel, and when he looked at you, it created the illusion of deep affection. Of course not. There's just strength in numbers. I was just worried they might run into danger. I laughed. Strength in numbers only applies when your interests are aligned. But right now we were in hell. Class president, don't you think the rules of this world feel familiar? Are there no rules out there in the real world? Of course there are. The ones who made the rules were just that group of rich, powerful students. The rules they set were, no one in the class was allowed to talk to Nina. She wasn't allowed to use the dorm bathroom. She couldn't wear the same hairstyle as Tiffany. She couldn't speak freely because her accent still had a hint of the countryside. She was supposed to accept all humiliation unconditionally and completely. In this dog-eat-dog environment, now that power, money, and status were all useless, I actually felt a sense of relief. We're all the same now, aren't we? He wasn't angry at my scoffing. Instead, he lowered his head. Nina, do you know what the most hateful thing about you is? He whispered in my ear. Nina used to say you were her best friend. But where were you every single time she was being bullied? I want to know, what made you abandon her and switch sides to Tiffany? Why? It was because of you, Simon. The hallway was filled with a suffocating stench, but I didn't seem to feel it. I laughed and said, it was because of the special attention you paid to Nina. It made me jealous. Who wouldn't have a crush on Simon? He was brilliant, driven, handsome, and self-possessed. Among the girls who threw themselves at him, I knew I didn't rank, so I never bothered to confess. But that didn't mean I wasn't jealous. My answer brought a complex look to Simon's eyes. His only response to my secret crush was 3 words. It was pointless. A faint sense of loss washed over me. Of course, for someone insignificant, he couldn't offer a dramatic reaction. Pointless perfectly summed up all my hidden feelings. He turned, but not to look for food. Finding food had always been a cover. What we're really looking for is Nina's body. There were only 5 of us in our group. I agreed with Simon's assessment. Instead of just waiting for the rules to punish us, it was better to proactively search for a way to break the cycle. The one who tied the bell must be the one to untie it. If Nina is the origin of all this, we have to start with her. I had always had my doubts about the cause of Nina's death. She committed suicide, but we don't know why. She had been through so much, and she'd survived all the hardship before. What was the trigger that finally pushed her over the edge? If we couldn't find a root cause, we might never get out of this funeral home. In the morgue, after opening several refrigerated drawers, we finally found Nina. I held my breath and slowly unzipped the body bag. She lay there peacefully, her hands folded, her face still delicate, like a sleeping princess from a fairy tale. Her stomach. Someone gasped. I felt a wave of dizziness. Yes, Nina's stomach was slightly swollen. It was obvious. She was pregnant. My mind exploded. Pregnant? 1 body, 2 lives, and she had slit her wrists. The amount of resentment contained in that was unimaginable. We were all in the same class. How did none of us notice? It's easy to hide for the first few months. Look at celebrities. And she was so thin, our school uniforms were baggy. It would have been easy. A classmate sneered contemptuously. Who would have thought? So high and mighty on the outside, but actually sleeping around. I couldn't help but retort, she was absolutely not that kind of person. There has to be more to the story. Nina was most likely assaulted. Otherwise, with final exams so close, after enduring so much, why would she give up now? It had to be something that completely broke her. Simon zipped up the body bag. We hadn't walked far when our phones vibrated again. A new rule was announced. When a dead person is in the elevator, do not turn around. Every dead person can make 3 requests. You must grant them or face the consequences. Only an even number of living people can exit a confined space. Right now, we were in an elevator. 5 of us. Even worse, the power in the elevator died. The car was stuck between the 4th and 5th floors. The pitch black, confined space was filled with nothing but the ragged breathing of 5 people. Simon immediately ordered, "Nobody turn around. Stay where you are and count off every minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had just breathed a sigh of relief when a quiet, ghostly voice counted from the corner. 6. Shit, who said that? Is there something behind us? I could feel the person next to me starting to hyperventilate. So was I. Fighting down my terror, I took out my phone, turned on the flash, and snapped a picture behind me. There was nothing in the photo. Before I could even feel relieved, Simon reminded me. But if the rules say the dead don't show up in mirrors, it's possible the same applies to phone cameras. The words had barely left his mouth when an icy hand landed on my shoulder. I flinched violently. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the hand, and my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. On the pale wrist were deep, cutting marks. It was Nina. Her long, black hair hung lifelessly over my neck. At that moment, even breathing felt painful. "Give me your hair." I didn't dare hesitate. Forcing my trembling hands to be still, I used a knife to cut off my long hair. The next second, Nina stiffly raised her hand and moved in front of Simon. "Give me your finger." "A finger? She wants a finger?" Simon froze. I was standing slightly behind him and couldn't see his expression. When a dead person makes a request, you must grant it or face the consequences. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. I asked quietly, "Simon, are you really going to?" "The rules don't say what the consequences are for not doing it." Face the consequences was an open-ended phrase. I thought there might be some room for negotiation. But this suggestion was immediately shot down by the other 3 students behind us. "That's too risky. You can't gamble with our lives." Terrified of being caught in the crossfire, they kept urging him on. "Hurry up and give it to her. It's better than all of us dying." The smell of rot from Nina's body filled the cramped space. On top of that, a strange tapping sound started coming from the elevator's ceiling hatch. I was already familiar with the sound of a corpse's movements. When they hadn't killed enough people to revive, their joints were stiff, which meant we were surrounded. Simon took out a small knife. I heard him take a deep breath. Then he closed his eyes and brought it down hard on his little finger. He doubled over, unable to stand straight. Hearing his muffled groan of pain, my lips started to tremble. Everyone had just breathed a sigh of relief, but Nina ignored the finger. She turned and came to another student, Calvin. This time what she wanted was, "Give me your heart." His heart. "No, I can't do that." Calvin shook his head in terror. A sarcastic comment escaped my lips. "Just give it to her. It's better than all of us dying." Nina's pale, eerie eyes were fixed on him. Calvin was the one who had lied on the stand during the exam, who had personally testified that he saw Nina cheating. "Without a heart, I'm dead anyway. It's death either way, I might as well fight." Calvin gritted his teeth, but the words had barely left his mouth when a knife plunged into his chest. He looked down in disbelief. The person who stabbed him was his own best friend, a skinny, tall guy with a buzz cut. The two had been roommates, bunkmates, the closest of friends. When Tiffany bullied Nina, they were always right there to help. Desperate screams filled the elevator. When the other 2 groups heard the noise and Pride opened the elevator doors, they were stunned by the scene inside. The small space was filled with a thick, metallic stench that wouldn't dissipate. 3 bodies lay on the floor. Simon and I were the only 2 who survived. Calvin was stabbed by his roommate, Kyle, but he managed to kill him back before he died. That left 3 of us, I explained, recounting the events. Only an even number of living people can exit a confined space. With 3 people, if one more didn't die, none of us could leave the elevator. So Simon and I had worked together and killed the other one. I said it very calmly. After all, there was no room for moral judgment now. No one had the right to condemn anyone else. The other students had just gone through the same thing. Of the 3 groups that went out, only half the people had returned alive. Just then, a special rule was announced. Find the father of Nina's child for an extra reward. Who assaulted Nina? My eyes immediately went to the most likely suspect. Brad. He was a school jock, tall, brawny, and sleazy. He used his family's money to harass girls constantly. I never touched her. Brad jumped up, denying it frantically, but the other students mercilessly exposed him. Huh, I saw you corner Nina a few times, getting all handsy. I saw it too. You dragged Nina into the school supply closet. She was crying and yelling. Didn't you brag in the dorms that you'd sleep with her sooner or later? That was from the video. Tiffany had already stripped her bare. I don't want used goods. Brad's face was beet red from arguing. He suddenly pointed at the class president. Right? I saw him and Nina kissing on the roof. They were the ones in a relationship. The baby is probably his. Simon? I laughed out loud. He was weak now, with his missing finger, too tired to speak, let alone argue. He just leaned against the wall with his eyes closed. One was the model student and class president, the other a notorious jock with a bad reputation. No one believed Brad. As I stood up, I found a crumpled piece of paper in my pocket. Who put this here? I opened it, puzzled. In an instant, my pupils shrank. Scrawled on the note were the words, "Run. Simon is one of the revived dead." What kind of joke was this? Was Brad just trying to frame him? I had been fighting alongside Simon this whole time. Wouldn't I know if he was normal or not? But wait, I suddenly remembered something. I was the second person to arrive at the funeral home today. The first person to arrive was Simon, but he hadn't been back to school in days. When had he disappeared? It seemed like it was right after Nina's incident. My mind was a mess. My little crush on him made me hesitate. But what if it was true? Luckily, everyone's attention was on Brad. I stood up nonchalantly and took out my phone for a picture. The rules said, the dead do not exist in reflections. Would a revived dead person also follow that rule? Please don't let it be true. I prayed, my heart heavy with dread, hoping it was all just a false alarm. But I zoomed in on the photo and froze. Everyone else was in the picture. Everyone except Simon. Just then, a strange smile crept onto Simon's lips. He stood up and walked straight toward Brad. My mind roared, and I screamed with all the strength I had in my body. Run. Sean is one of the revived dead. But it was too late. Simon had already stabbed Brad in the back. You were right about one thing. I was in love with Nina. The sudden violence stunned everyone. It was only then that I noticed, under the stark white light, Simon's eyes had no shine to them at all. It turned out, on the day of Nina's accident, he had been in a car crash on his way to the hospital. I confessed my feelings to Nina, but she didn't accept. She said we were both from poor families, that being together would make us targets for everyone. She told me to think about the bigger picture, that we really couldn't afford to provoke you guys. His icy gaze swept over all of us. She said it so casually that we only had 6 months until graduation. Once we got the jobs we wanted and had enough money, everything would get better. She never told me in detail what she was going through. Simon avoided Brad's vital organs. He was going to torture him slowly, interrogate him. What did you all do to Nina that made her kill herself? Brad said the child wasn't his. To be precise, he didn't know whose child it was. His face was covered in blood, his expression a mask of pain and savagery. That night, I invited guys from 2 dorms to a hotel my uncle owns. We drank a lot. We saw Nina working there as a hostess. I had someone slip something into her staff meal, then I took her to her room. You can't blame me, I was drunk. I clenched my fist so hard my nails drew blood, but I didn't feel it. Afterward, Nina wanted to call the cops. I was prepared. I told her I had filmed the whole thing. I said if she reported it, nothing would probably happen to us, but her life would be over. She gave in then. I never thought she'd get pregnant. If she was pregnant, she should have just gotten an abortion. She didn't ask me for the money. So who's to blame? There were so many of us that night. Simon didn't let him finish. He slit Brad's throat. The once gentle, scholarly boy was now bathed in blood. A demon returned for revenge. This place is born of my obsession. It's a crossroads between the living and the dead. Classmates, enjoy the last moments of your lives. My classmates fled in a panic. Someone shouted that there was a break room up ahead, and everyone stampeded in that direction. The break room is safe, but only 6 people can enter at a time. If the number is exceeded, the safety is void. Every single person was determined to get in, their eyes glinting with a feral light. If they could just get inside, they could live. Someone got in first, only to be dragged back by the person behind them. A guy in front of me intentionally tripped me, and we immediately started fighting. In that moment, we were more savage than wild beasts. I drove my knee hard into the guy's wound. He cried out in pain, and I used the opening to slip past him and squeeze inside. I slammed the door, locked it, all in one motion. Countless monsters shambled towards us. The classmates left behind fell to their knees at the door, banging and begging us to let them in. But how could a room meant for 6 accommodate anyone else? I panted heavily. Through my blurry vision, I watched as the people outside were leisurely devoured by the monsters. The students who had collapsed to the floor inside began to murmur. Thank God, we're finally safe. Are we? Are we really going to survive? Why don't the rules say when this will end? As long as we stay in here, we're safe. We just have to wait until. Just as they were comforting each other, the monsters outside started pounding on the door. Their post-disaster joy froze on their faces, replaced by confusion and helplessness. It only took a few seconds for the door to crash inward. The corpses closed in on us. What's happening? Why? Why did the rule fail? Isn't this the break room? There are only 6 of us. The rules don't make mistakes. But the problem is, I savored this beautiful moment, slowly revealing the cruel truth. This was never the break room mentioned in the rules. But someone just said, I was the one who had yelled that there was a break room here during the chaos. But in reality, this was just an ordinary room. You're in on it with the class president. What did I ever do to you guys to deserve this? Oh no, I explained patiently. I only figured out he was already dead when I was in the morgue, because the refrigerated drawer right next to Nina's had Simon's name on it. As they stared in despair, I slowly unzipped my jacket, revealing the shirt underneath. I love watching the moment their hope shatters. No one here is wearing red. Do not speak to anyone in red, and do not look directly into red eyes. I couldn't help but laugh. Sorry, I happen to be wearing red today, so nothing I say can be trusted. I was also the one who sent all of you the threatening texts. I had the proof of their evil deeds, enough to ruin the reputations of these self-proclaimed elites. Nina and I were desk mates and best friends. We were bullied together, licked our wounds together, and healed each other. We encouraged each other, telling ourselves to just hold on for another 6 months. After graduation, once we started working, we'd be free. Tiffany stole Nina's spot in the study abroad program. I knew she dreamed of going, so I came up with a plan. You pretend to join their side, gain their trust, and get evidence. Then we'll expose them completely and totally. Nina agreed. But who would stay and who would go over? I'll go. I'm stronger, I said. Nina looked at me, her eyes so gentle. She said we should draw straws. In the end, she drew the short straw and had to stay. I stood there holding my straw, completely lost, but Nina acted as if she had expected it. It was only then I realized she had cheated. I'm older than you. I'm the big sister. I can't let my little sister do it. Only by a few days. That's not fair. I argued. Even 1 second older is still older, she said, her voice as gentle as ever. Besides, I've been fighting with them for so long. If I try to join them now, Tiffany would never believe me. My dear, it's going to be hard on you over there. The mission of gathering evidence is all on you now. I swallowed my disgust and started cozying up to Tiffany. Every time I watched Nina get hit, I had to dig my nails into my own skin. But Tiffany was suspicious. She had someone hold Nina down and handed me a lit cigarette. Go on. Can't bear to hurt your best friend? My hand was shaking. I didn't want to act anymore. I couldn't take it. I want to just take them all down with me. But Nina's eyes were still so gentle. Her gaze was a silent reminder. Don't let it all be for nothing. I steeled myself and pressed the cigarette into Nina's arm. That night, I took a cigarette and burned myself in the exact same spot on my own arm. Nina said I was a fool. I just shook my head, crying. I just want to remember. I want to remember the pain you felt. I didn't fail my mission. I found the evidence of Tiffany bribing people. This time, we'll definitely get your spot back. I swore to her. But on the day I was about to turn in the evidence, Nina died. By suicide. I don't believe she would kill herself. We were girls whose self-esteem had been shattered and then pieced back together by each other. We were girls who would claw and scrape our way through life just to survive, to make something of ourselves, to be successful. That was our goal. She had promised me we would celebrate our 20th, 30th, and 40th birthdays together. The ones who deserved to die were never us. A few days later, I received a letter she had mailed me, and a lot of presents. It was only then that I learned everything she had gone through behind my back. An unspeakable pain crushed me over and over, but I knew it was not 1/1,000,000th of what Nina had suffered. Even the darkest night eventually sees the dawn. But why could our suffering never have an end? Nina, forgive me. It's too painful here. I have to go. I really wanted to spend every birthday with you. Forgive me. Please, you have to forgive me. On the night of July 7th, a serious traffic accident occurred in the city. A bus heading to a funeral home was involved in a crash. According to reports, the bus was carrying 38 students from a university's XX department. 32 were killed on impact. 6 were sent to a nearby hospital for treatment, but 5 of them succumbed to their injuries. Only one person survived. Nina, you were right. In this world, the rules are indeed made by the rich and powerful. That a fact that ordinary people like us can't change. All we can do is believe in cosmic justice, in karma. Believe in the empty promise that evil will be punished. But if we can only accept their rules, then what about in another world? Can we have our own rules there?